welcome to the channel. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to take a look at this lovely looking Sony Walkman. It's a WM EX-508 and it came in as part of a consignment recently. You can see it's in a nice little case there, and it's done a good job, the case, because the actual unit itself is in really quite nice condition. I've got to say, it's pretty mint, to be honest. Very nice looking bit of kit. Now it's got mega bass levels on the back there. You've also got Dolby noise reduction, so that'll be Dolby B, and it plays type 1 and also your chrome and metal position as well. So it's actually quite a nice looking unit, to be honest. Also, it's auto reverse, and it takes a regular battery, or I think a gumstick battery as well, but it really is in lovely condition. But it doesn't work, at least I don't think it does. So I thought today we'll try and do something about that. So what do we know? Okay, well, first thing we'll do is put a battery in. As I say, I don't have a gumstick battery to hand, but it's a 1.5 volts. So let's just pop this in. Okay, battery is in, and we'll press play. There isn't a tape in there at the moment. Yeah, I can't see any sign of the belts going round. So let's just plug the headphones in and then see if it makes any sort of noises. Ah, there you go, making a little beeping sound. Oh, okay, a couple of things happened there. I noticed there was a tiny bit of movement in one of the reels, and also there was a tiny beeping noise coming out of my trusty JSX37 speakers. So it wants to work, I think. You can try again. Yeah, there's something sort of happening inside, but I think, yeah, it's not quite working. So there's definitely not enough torque in there to turn a cassette, I don't think. So actually, I've got a tape here. Let's just try one. Quite fiddly to get in these little tapes because they are almost the same. The Walkman's almost the same size as a cassette. So if we press play, yeah, you can hear something's trying to happen, but none of the spindles are turning. So I think what we'll have to do, take this out. I'm hoping it's just a belt. That'd be ace. If it's just a belt, that'll be a nice easy fix. It could be something a lot more complicated, and we'll hope it's not. But given that something's happening and some of the little mechanical parts are whirring around inside there, I don't think it's seized. We know the motor's not seized, and it's in such lovely condition generally. I don't think it's been abused or dropped or smashed or anything. So I'm hoping it's just an aged belt. Now, the belts on these kind of auto reverse tapes can be quite complicated. Often there is only one, but it tends to run quite a complicated path, driving several pulleys, maybe dual capstans, dual flywheels, of course, you can see there. So yeah, I think before we speculate anymore, best thing would just be to get it open. Okay, so I've just moved it to my towel of destiny to help protect it against any scratches, and I think the screws for the back cover may well be independent. So it might be wishful thinking, but I'm hoping that we haven't actually got to get the hinge mechanism and all of that out, because we shouldn't have to service the mechanism per se. Hopefully we'll just be able to get the back case off and see from there. And that little screw straight away doesn't want to come out. That's always good fun. Get the tweezers on that one in a moment. Where else is there one? Okay, there's two on the back here, so we'll get these ones out. Okay, and this was the era when the screws really were getting tiny. They were still regular screws. Nobody tried any fancy pentalobes or anything like that, like you get on iPhones and stuff, but they are still Phillips screws. But my word, are they ever getting tinier and tinier by this time. So just one more to try and get out. Come on, there we go. Right, now I'm just going to compare them. Yeah, they are the same size by the looks of it as each other. So right, that's 3 screws out. Obviously we've got to be mindful of the volume control there, and there is a little slider pin there as well, which we may have to we may actually have to get that off, and indeed these back covers as well, because if we don't get these slider switches off, I've got a feeling the whole thing's just going to pewing off somewhere. So pewing off sounds like it's from South Korea or somewhere. Right, hang on then. I'm just rustling through my little bag of miniature implements, seeing what I can find. I don't want to scratch anything if I can help it. Here we go. The trouble is, they really are, yeah, they really are tiny. By the time you've messed about trying to dig things in to lift them, you may as well use a metal implement and just be careful. Okay, there we go. So there's one. Alrighty, so that's the tape mechanism one. Now, regular viewers to the channel may know, there's the Dolby one, may remember an instance where I flicked one of these, was getting carried away, and it just disappeared across the room. So we'll try not to do that again, that's for sure. So, alright, so we've got the tape one off, we've got the Dolby one off, and the Mega Bass. And we did say there's one more across the top, so we'll just remove. Hopefully this is the same. There you go. Just nice and gentle there. Alrighty. It's also worth mentioning, or worth noticing, the way they actually go, because they're eccentric little clips actually, and you can't really tell down there. You just see a little square aperture or rectangular aperture, but they only actually go in one way. Anyways, we've now removed, what's that, 3 screws. We'll get the battery out in case there's anything under here. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, there's nothing else I can see inside. We've got 3 screws out. We've removed anything that might be in the way potentially. So let's see if we can just gently peen this away. Okay, and there we go, there we have it. So that's the back case away. Okay, right. Alrighty, well, it's kind of good news and kind of bad news. So what we've got here is the belt is sort of loose and it's stuck. So if you can watch the path, if you watch the path of it just on the edge, just here, as I start to turn it, you can see it's loose, and you'll see that on a tiny pulley in there, you just see the belt. Yeah, so it looks like it's probably a little bit stuck, but it's also quite slack, so it's clearly on its way out. So I think we'll move the camera for a slightly better look, better position, and I think we'll see if we can get this board away just to get access to the belt. I can see the reference points for 2 mounting screws at least there. Now there's a ribbon cable attached on the bottom edge along with a battery connection just there. So I'm thinking it probably unscrews from the top and pivots away rather than having to desolder these ribbon cables and stuff on the bottom. So let's just remove these 2 tiny little screws. It is almost at microscopic level now. Okay, and I've just realised I've missed a little screw as well. Didn't see that one right in the middle. So again, that's a tiny one. Right, so I've had a look at this now, and it would appear actually that we may well actually have to remove all of these. So I'm just going to get all this stuff away. I think first things first. Let's just try and get this. So there's a battery negative which runs down. You might even see it's the one that comes literally from the negative terminal. That's that one. Then we've got this one here, which has got 4 to ribbon with, it's like a multi-plug with four ports on this one, and this looks very much like this is for the motor. So that's that one. Does that allow us to get in? We're just kind of hoping that we could get in with that one. Trying to not desolder as many or too many things if we can help it. It's hard to tell. Sometimes you see, usually, especially on a lot of the older units, when they weren't so compact, you'd be able to sort of float them and just see if it was catching on one or the other. Now at the moment the board's stuck on that side, but there's definitely no screws left to come out. But it's still not moving, and I think it's because that ribbon may be so tight that it's just holding us up. So I think we're going to have to go ahead and get that out anyways. So I think we'll do that now. And then ultimately once all of the actual ribbons are disconnected, we know we just got to work our way around and kind of peel the board back out. So I'm just going to do this very, very carefully. It was also stuck on as well, so there we go. Right, okie dokie. So that is that. So we've now disconnected the battery connection, we've disconnected the motor connections, and we've also here just disconnected the head ribbon cables as well. I don't think we've done any damage. I'm just going to check. We were nice and careful. Yep, and they look pretty good to me. That looks safe enough. So hopefully now, I don't know if it's even caught up. It might be caught up on that little ground point there. I don't think it is, but let's just see. Let's just see if that's holding it up. Okay, so we got there in the end. We were kind of fault finding that together, but basically what you've got is a screw there, there, and there. Once you remove those, you've then got the motor connection to desolder, the battery connection to desolder, and then the heads to desolder there. So once you've done those three, you're almost out, but you have to then desolder the ground pin and also the two little contacts just on the end, which connect in turn onto the switchboard just there. Once you've done that, as you can see, the audio board actually comes away, and there it is. So that's just a quick look if you want to screenshot that or see what's under there. But that's the actual board. But in any event, that wasn't what we were here for. We were here to change the belt. So cursory look shows that the gears and the cogs are all in really nice condition. So that's great. There's nothing split or no shed teeth or anything like that by the looks of things. So basically what we need to do now is find ourselves a belt. So you can see, yeah, look at that. You can see how loose it is. Right, okay, so this is going to be around there. In fact, even just taking it off, you can see how stretched. Unfortunate actually, because it's not actually, there you go. Oh, it's a skinny little belt, I'll give it that. It's not fallen apart, it's not stuck to the pulleys, so that's fantastic. Now I know at the point in time that I don't actually have one of these belts to put on, so we're not going to fix this now, but through the magic of editing, I'll come back in probably a few days time with a replacement belt, and we can get ahead and put it all back together again. So I'm just about to order a belt, and you can sometimes find people that are selling the exact correct one that you need, but that's not always the case. So if it's not indeed the case, what you want to do is get yourself a ruler or some sort of caliper. And so we're quite lucky. So that's 63 mil. We're quite lucky in that we've got the original one. Now we know it's oversized. We know it's oversized, but that's about 63 mil, and that's fitting just inside all the way around. If I go for 64, and we're just literally just trying this, because you have to just get a bit of a gut feel for it. You can measure the existing one and maybe take 5% off or something like that, but there you go. I'm still looking at about 63 and a half, 63.8, 63, and looking at the belt, 63. So I'd probably be looking at probably a, say, 60 mil belt for that, and that will just bring it in enough to give that tension back. Now, in terms of the cross section, I don't know if you'll see it on here, but we're now going to be looking, that's probably 0.5 mil. Yeah, looks like a 0.5 mil belt, to be honest. Something like that. Yeah, 0.5 mil by 60, something like that, and that should do us. So I've just measured that up at 0.5 by, I'm going to allow 60 mil. It's actually about 63, 64. So that'll shrink down to, I think 60 is going to be okay, because it was almost biting. I don't want to make it too tight. Now, people often slate these cheap, you know, Chinese multi-bag belts and stuff, and I find them really useful, not necessarily for use, especially in something nice like this, and also things that, you know, if they require that much desoldering as this one did, the last thing you want to do is get a really rubbishy belt that's warbling and stuff, and you've got to desolder it and back, whatever. So I'm not advocating using them, not in something like this anyway, but they are useful for what I've just done here is a mock-up. So I did find one that I thought would be the right size, the 60 mil that I'm going to order. And okay, it's slightly too thick. This is a 1 mil, but what I've done is I've just got it as a dry run, so you can see there that if I were to spin the motor, you can see that everything else wants to turn. It's easier on the big flywheels here, but yeah, so I'm quite happy with the size of that 60 mil. So I use that as a dry run. Obviously I'm not going to put this back together and try it yet, because I'm not going to desolder it just to take it all apart again and redo it again when the proper belt comes. But it's just a nice sanity check sometimes if you're unsure and you've got belts that are so deformed or loose or perished and you just haven't got a clue what they are. Quite often these kind of multi-packs, they're great just for a reference, if nothing else, or just to get you out of trouble, just as a sanity check. So there you go. I'm quite happy now with the size that I think I need, so I'm going to go ahead and place the order. So I've just ordered the belts and I'm waiting for those to come. Obviously I only need one here, but I get a better deal if I buy a few, so nice to have some spares for some other models if we need them. Incidentally, what I just do here is put everything back, so I take them down exactly in their positions on the board or where they've come from, because you never know if there's any minor differences in between different items. So it's nice just not to mix them up, and also great to have them go back exactly where they came from. To that end, I'm also just keeping everything together, so dry fitting the board back in there. There's the lid, there's the old belt, which is no good for anything really, but it's nice just to have a sanity check sort of reference, if you like. And then that is it for a minute until the belts arrive. So all I do is whenever I've got like a takeaway or anything like that, any Chinese or an Indian, just keep the tubs, and then that's one project in abeyance, ready to go next time you need it, knowing all the parts are going to be there and everything's exactly as you left it. Okay guys, so it's a few days later and we're ready to start the WM EX-508 again, and I believe we left off here with the bits and pieces ready to go to start the project. Now then, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a recap. So there's the old belt, and we tried a makeshift belt for size, and I've just ordered up a decent belt. This one's from Deck Tech. I always find these guys really useful. Great quality belts and fantastic packaging and super fast turnaround, so I recommend them if you're in the UK anyways. So let's have a look. Here we have ourselves a very fragile, because it is only a 0.5 mil 1/2 mm belt, so I reckon we'll be okay. So going to very gently thread this on and just watch we don't stretch it. I'm just going to use some tweezers, going to be super careful not to snag the belt here. There we go, that's that one. And then that should go back around there. And I'll just zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. But basically what we've got now then is perfect. Look at that, spinning away nicely. Good stuff. Yep, I reckon that's just the right amount of tension on there. That's lovely. Tickety boo, I'm happy with that. And also, if you're just checking the belt, I'll just zoom in a little bit. If you're checking the belt tension, it's quite nice sometimes just to hold one of the pulleys and see if you've got the bite there, see if you've got the grip. But I think that's spot on. Lovely. Yeah, what you'll find is you shouldn't be able to spin one of the pulleys if you hold the other one. There we go. Righty-ho then. So next job, start putting this back together again. Right, so next then we'll get the board on, and putting it back together should be easier than getting it off because I didn't know what I was doing the first time. So there we go, we'll line that up and that should actually now be spot on. The only thing we've got to make sure of is make sure the ground pin is seated. Good. So basically then I'll just point out, when we put this back together, we've got the ground pin from the battery that comes up through the board that we solder back on. We've got 2 solder points there that connect us to the switch board, which is a separate little board across there. We've then got the battery to go onto there, the motor connection onto there, and the heads connection onto there. So I think the best thing to do now is just make a start soldering up. But I think the first thing I'll just do is screw it back down again. Now remember, we kept our screws nice and safe here, so I'm just gonna put these screws back into their correct respective place on the board, and then we'll get the soldering done. And no matter how careful and methodical you are, it's always nice when everything goes back where it came from like that. Okay, so I've just put a tape in and a battery, so all that remains is to hook up some little speakers here and press play and see what happens. There we go. Nice, that's working. So we'll stop that, rewind, stop, fast forward, stop, play, and change direction. Lovely, excellent stuff. We'll call that a win. So let's just get the back case back on and give her a wipe over and take a proper look. So here it is then, the Sony Walkman EX-508. Beautiful little unit in stunning condition, and it always was really. It just needed a new belt. It was slipping, it wasn't playing at all actually. Forward, reverse, fast forward, auto reverse, nothing worked. It's only got one belt, but obviously if that belt's no good, then nothing at all is going to work on it. So a little bit fiddly to get apart, a few screws, a few clips, a few more screws on the board, and I think there were 14 solder joints, would you believe, to actually get away before we could get to the belt. But once we got the belt there, that ran nicely over all the pulleys, reassembled it all and got it back together now. So here it is. We'll just give it a quick listen while we're here. So we'll press play. And I've got my trusty little JSX Sanyo speakers here. And we'll auto reverse that now, switch sides. And rewind, fast forward, lovely, and play again. Superb. So we'll just turn that down a little bit, but there we go. So that's the Sony Walkman WM EX-508. Not a lot to this one really. As I say, it was a nice clean one. We've just given it a bit of a polish. We've cleaned the head, the caps in, the pinch rollers, all that sort of stuff while we're in there. But basically just the belt change has sorted everything out. So there we go. If you've got one of these or you're looking at similar Walkmans that you want to repair, then hopefully that was of use and you find it interesting. If you would like to find out more information about old Walkmans, boomboxes, 8-track stuff, all that kind of thing, then do please check out the channel and subscribe, hit the notifications bell for updates, and I shall see you soon. In the meantime, take care and goodbye for now.